Oh yeah. So if setting stricter rules for the economy would decrease consumption, then thank fuck. Like, we're gonna have to decrease consumption for sooner or later. And so if we wanna do it this like I think if we want to switch it a little bit more into climate change, because that's probably one of the topics that I'm most interested in, right?
Okay.
And also it's going to help sort of make this discussion a little bit more global minded than just discussing, local politics in the city of Bergen. But
Sure.
something that I think it's interesting to realize, right, is in the fight for climate change, or in any movement trying to make social change, there are stages of the movement that you need to pass through, right?
Okay.
So the first stage of climate change was realizing that it was happening, right? 300 years ago, no scientist had ever heard of climate change. And you need some time for scientists to gather the data and find out, oh shit, something is happening, right?
Okay.
So let's call that stage one. Then, after scientists were sure it was happening, stage two is convincing people
The masses.
people that it's happening. Like,
Right.
yeah, just convincing people. And that was like, Al Gore was one of the first politicians in the US. The Norwegian Green Party is getting more and more voters, like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call that stage two. But then stage three and stage four are probably even more interesting, right? Because then here's even something that's even more difficult than convincing people it's happening, is convincing people that something needs to be done.
And do
That's
something,
stage three.
right?
But then even more difficult, right? Is stage four,
Which is doing something.
convincing people that some no, no, that's stage five.
Okay, right, okay.
Stage four is
Okay.
convincing people that something needs to be done quickly.
Now, right?
And that's the one that we're struggling the most with,
Okay.
right? Because the UN has the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, has literally told us that we have until 2030 to decrease emissions by 60%.
Okay.
That's 10 years from now, and we need to go down by 60%. That is a ridiculous amount to ask for in 10 years, right? So when people in right-wing parties say like, "Oh yeah, I believe in climate change," and then right afterwards they say, "Oh, but I don't believe we should do this, or this," then it's like, do you really though? Like, do you really believe in climate change if you're not willing to do anything? And moreover, you're not willing to do anything more quickly. Like, do you know one of the stupidest things I heard the other day was, right? I heard the leader of, or it's called a CEO, right? I
Okay.
heard the CEO of Equinor, the huge Norwegian oil company. He said on live radio that he realized that eventually we were going to have to stop producing oil, right?
Really?
So he is
Hmm.
at so he's at stage three. If you know the discussion we just had, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He's at stage three. He realizes that something has to be done, but he's not at stage four because he doesn't realize that something has to be done quickly. Like, it's not like we have 100 years to do this. We have 10. We have 10 years to do this.
We have 10
And he
according
was
to.
speaking as if, according to the IPCC, the
Right.
UN's International Panel on Climate Change, which is the undeniable largest authority on climate change in the world. Like,
Right, okay.
there's no higher authority than the UN's International Panel on Climate Change. Okay, so he's on stage three, acknowledging that something has to be done, but then he just ignores stage four by saying that he's still gonna be the CEO of a massive oil company, and he realizes that something has to be done, but he's not saying something has to be done now. He's like, oh, eventually something is going to have to be done. That absolutely baffles me. People like that.
But then again, his job kind of relies on oil.
Yes, his job does rely on oil, which I judge. But I mean, I judge him for that as well.
You
I
know,
mean, for me, that's like being like a war profiteer. Like, he's profiting off of the world going to shit. And I know that I couldn't live with myself if that was me.
that's correct, but if you don't do it, then somebody else would, right? And that's I
Yeah, but
mean, I mean,
then
what I just said is a
I'm not
really
gonna do
stupid
it.
mentality as well, but it is still a real point, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, someone is gonna do it anyway. But that's why we and I and just like the discussion earlier with a Monopoly game, someone is gonna do it unless you change the Monopoly game rules so that it's impossible to do.
Yes.
Right? So we need to make an impossible, like a monopoly game rule, like every company has to put forth a plan to decrease its emissions by 60% before 2030, else they get shut down by the government. Like something we need, I mean, maybe not something that extreme, but we need something extreme like that. Because we can't just expect the companies to do it on their own. There needs to be some game rule forcing their hand, because they're not going to do it by themselves. They have no reason. They have no reason to do it by themselves, because as I said earlier, companies aren't people. Companies don't have the same priorities as we do. So the thing that's making me not a commie is that I like the companies, right?
Okay.
But the thing that's making me a lefty is that I want very strict rules concerning how the companies can play, like how they can play Monopoly, which way they can play it.